Hey everybody, this is Josh McKinney, and I just want to welcome you to episode 172 of the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show. Today, I have something to admit to you guys. I was totally wrong about an episode that I did just a couple months ago. And it was actually right after doing a ton of research on this episode, interviewing the smartest people I knew about these things. And I won't give too much away. I'll let the kind of episode speak for itself. But what happened is I was looking just a little too closely at an idea, and it was the idea of the perfect schedule. And I got too obsessed with it, and it caused me to miss the most important detail about scheduling, about using scheduling to get better at jiu-jitsu, and of course using schedule to get closer to any goal, whether it's on the mat or off the mat. And looking back now, I'm like, oh my gosh, what an idiot. I'm frustrated by it, but we'll get over it. It'll be fine. Most of the time, I'm making mistakes on this podcast all the time. Something, I reference this a lot, but it's because I realize how true it is. Something my friend Chris Paynes always says is when I teach something, it's like by the time it's out of my mouth, it's probably out of date. A week later, it's so out of date. And, it's just because the way that I teach, the way that I present, is I'm just showing you guys exactly how I understand these things right now, how I see jiu-jitsu right now. And so today I'm going to talk to you guys about how I see jiu-jitsu right now, and I see the importance of schedule, but how to approach it differently than the last time I told you guys. Now, before we get into this, just a few cool things to talk about. The studio is almost done. Obviously, I'm not in there right now. I still haven't decided how many of the solo episodes I will record in the studio. It's really nice being able to record from my house, but I also live very close to the gym, very close to the studio, and I could, get there really quick and record there. Still haven't decided on that yet. I think it's going to look so cool that I'm going to just be like, how could I not do the studio? That's what my hope is, and we'll see how that goes. But anyway, cool little thing going on. I guess I'm coming out of retirement again, and I have a professional jiu-jitsu match. And this match is going to be the main event of the St. Louis Invitational. This is on February 25th. I think that for anyone in the St. Louis area, this show will be absolutely worth going and checking out, and going and buying a ticket for. This is going to be more of a kind of like a high-end jiu-jitsu event. People are going to be dressed up. It's going to just present jiu-jitsu the very, very same way that we talked about how the Imposed Will, the Strange Hands event, put jiu-jitsu more as a show of art than it did as a sporting event. And maybe this is just my preference, but I really would rather see two grapplers just grapple. Right? Where it really, of course, your wins and your losses do matter. You're a competitor, but they really don't matter, right? You're really there to put on a show and display the art. And I'm really excited that I get to be on the show. I'm really excited to get to headline this show. I think the three last St. Louis professional grappling shows, they're all put on by three different companies, but this will be the third one in the last couple years, and I have had the honor of headlining all three of them. And so hopefully I've been doing my job on the last few, and I think I have. I think that it's kind of known that if I'm going to compete on a show, I'm gonna bring it, gonna go and have fun with it, but also that there will be fireworks. I'm not there to to do anything but put on a show and try to show my best jiu-jitsu. And so, yeah, I have a match coming up. If you guys are in the St. Louis area or just wanting to travel to the St. Louis area, be sure I'll link the place to buy tickets in the description. The company that's running the show is called Blue Corner. I will have a guy named Josh Murdoch. He is from Daisy Fresh. If you guys are familiar with who they are, he's one of their black belts, and he and I will scrap in the main event, and it should be a lot of fun. Like I said, tickets will be in the description. Will be in the there'll be a link for you guys to click on and get your tickets. Make sure to, of course, select Josh McKinney and let them know that you're excited that this guy's freaking competing on this show. But that's all I have for you guys. Let's go ahead and get into this episode and talk about how I was more wrong than I've ever been. Let's get into it. I thought that your schedule mattered. And I was wrong. Or, yes, of course, your schedule matters. Of course, if you don't follow some type of schedule, it's going to be way harder to get wherever you're trying to go. But when it comes to schedule, and I did a few months on the podcast where I really dug into this idea of schedule and really just using a schedule to get to your goals. And I think most of what I said was very, very good. But there were a few missing thoughts or a few missing details that I really think I've added, or at least started to figure out over the last few months that have been really helpful for me during an incredibly busy time, that I've been able to keep a better schedule. Just the first, 3 weeks of the year, I guess starting last year. But I've been able to keep a better schedule than I ever have before. And it really came with changing my thinking, changing how I was approaching my goals, how I was approaching my schedule. So I thought a good place to start was with an idea, just a little thought exercise. And it's this: if you had, you wrote some specific goals that you have, they're personal goals, and I was incredibly intelligent, and I was Chat GPT, and I could then see those goals and spit out the best schedule, the best weekly routine, the best monthly routine, the best yearly routine to get you to your goals. If I could do that, would you follow it? Probably not. Yes, you would try. Yes, I would try. But here's the thing. I've tried a million different schedules. I have tried Jocko's schedule and Tim Ferriss's schedule and every morning routine and every one of those things that are talked about like this big fix to your life, this big propulsion to get you to wherever you're trying to get to. What I started to realize, and you guys can fact check me and listen to, I think the episode was called The Perfect Schedule. I started realizing that the schedule isn't as important as the incremental growth that happens from the schedule, from the consistency. I know I talk about focus and consistency on this podcast probably more than anything. Those are really the two talking points that I started with on this show. But the fact that I got so much response from so many jiu-jitsu people going, yeah, focus and consistency, man, this is what I struggle with. I just needed little tweaks to help me be more focused, little tweaks to help me be more consistent. Most of us aren't dying to take this schedule that we need to now implement that ChatGPT gave us. If you guys don't know what ChatGPT is, it's this It's going to take over the world, but it's really just a callback to last week's episode to get you guys to listen to the Q&A, episode 171. Very great episode, by the way. Some people have told me. I thought it was all right. I could tell I was exhausted in the episode, but people said that they like it. Anyway, regardless. When I started to focus on incremental growth, I realized that it wasn't through at 9 a.m. every single day, I am going to stretch, right? That's a big thing. I've told you guys this before. This is a big thing that I find is actually helpful to my body, that is actually helpful to my goals. I notice my guard in jiu-jitsu is significantly better when I'm stretching consistently. I notice my knee and rib health, which are two things I've had a ton of physical problems with. They're so much better when I stretch. And so what I would do is I would go, okay, what's the best stretching routine that I can find? And then I would find this great stretching routine. It's like 45 minutes a day. And I would go, okay, I'm going to commit to doing this stretching routine 45 minutes a day. And I'm pretty good at being consistent because I've done it for so long, right? Being disciplined. I'm pretty good at that. I would say, I don't know what my ranking would be 1 out of 10, but I would say definitely I am able to be more consistent and more disciplined than most people. But here's the thing. With this 45-minute stretching routine I would do it, I would do it, I would do it, I would get overtrained. And then the stretching routine was out the window, and then I would never pick it back up because it was so hard. And for a lot of times, it was the reason that I was overtrained. Or it went into the reason. The reason is because I'm trying to keep this unkeepable schedule. And the schedule to me starts to become more important than the results. I've got to keep this. I've got to be stretching more. I've got to be stretching more. And I start stretching so much, and it's taking so much of my physical and mental energy along with my lifts, along with my jiu-jitsu training, that my stretching is almost starting to hit that, what do they call it? The point of diminishing return. Starting to hit that point where I'm going, man, I'm stretching, but I'm not getting the same results that I was in the beginning. And it's actually kind of hurting my body worse. My knee actually hurts. My rib actually hurts worse. I've got to keep the schedule. And I would just bang my head into the wall until I would eventually give up on this schedule. And as we've talked about before, that little voice that's in all of us that loves to remind us every time we fail creating a schedule, that loves to remind us then all the times before, see, remember, you're a failure. You forgot you attempted this big schedule and you forgot that you're a failure and you're a quitter and that you quit all the time and that you're an idiot and you hate yourself. That's how you guys talk to yourself too, right? No? Okay. Maybe we should call somebody about that. But anyway, so like I said, first thought of the day was that schedule was what I thought was all that mattered. Schedule's all that matters. But now I realize that schedule doesn't matter. Habits matter. I'll say it again. Schedule does not matter. Habits matter. Of course, your schedule does matter. I've said this. I've corrected myself already, but it sounds better when I say it that way. Much more memorable when I say it that way. So let's talk about this different idea of forming habits instead of just looking at a schedule. And then we'll actually look at some specific habits to try to implement and some really clever tricks to actually get them to stick. And like I said, I've not been doing this for a very long time, but this is definitely the best that I've kept a schedule because I haven't been keeping a schedule. And so, when we're trying to look at habits, before we look at them, of course, we will always begin with the end in mind. We have goals, right? That is the reason that we form habits. Maybe your goal is losing 20 pounds. A lot of people that start jujitsu, they do it simply to lose weight. A lot of jujitsu schools, they sell jujitsu with this idea of weight loss, which I don't think is disingenuous at all. A lot of people go into jujitsu schools and lose a lot of weight. A lot of times you get your exercise right and you start developing better habits of diet, and it helps you lose weight. Unless you're me. One of my purple belts made the joke the other day. Guy was like, "Yeah, I'm back. I need to get back into training so I can lose weight again." And he goes, Josh is training all the time. Josh will get fat while he's training. I'm like, man, that's true. I do that. But anyway, so maybe that's a habit that you have. Maybe you have a habit, or maybe you have a goal. Sorry, that's a goal that you have. Maybe you have a goal of winning a local title. Maybe you're a few hours away from you. They do a state championship of jujitsu in competition. You're a blue belt and you want to win that title, right? Or you just want to become a competitor. You want to just compete often. You want to get better results. Maybe you do compete often. You just want to get better at competing. You just want to win more, and experience more success. No matter what that is, what goal you're starting with. When I say, yeah, what's your big goal? The thing that pops into your head. And like we talk about, maybe that's not completely formulated yet. Maybe you just want to be a great competitor. And as you set these small goals to become a great competitor and form really good habits to become a great competitor, then your goal starts to shift into, I want to be a great no-gi competitor. That means I want to win ADCC trials, or that means I want to win my local Naga in the expert division. So then I get a cool title belt, right? Regardless of what your goal is, you need to start there. I talk to you guys about my goals. Sometimes I usually talk to you about them vaguely. I always feel like people that talk too much about what they're going to do tend to be the people that never do it. And so, even though I do spend an hour and change just chatting you guys up, a lot of the times I will still hide certain things, not talk about certain things. But I talk about my main three professional endeavors that I am in. One, you're listening to the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show, me as a content creator. And to me, this is something that will be something that will provide for my family in the future, and also create a platform that I can talk about things that I think are important to the jiu-jitsu world and the jiu-jitsu community, right? That is a big goal of mine. And so one of the biggest habits that I have formed, and I will break down in the next point, how I formed these habits on my podcast. So if you're wanting to get a little info on content creation and how to be better at it, we can look at how to be better at it. And maybe that'll be helpful. The other two, one is a jiu-jitsu competitor. I want to be, like I said, I want to be a great jiu-jitsu competitor, and get some bigger wins and get some career wins. And I talked to my coach about this year, and I guess it was at the end of last year. And one of the biggest things that he told me is, all right, well, if you're going to be a great jiu-jitsu competitor, I'm going to need to see you more active. You've got to be more consistent competing. You can't just compete at the big ones and hope that you can win at the big ones. You need to develop more consistency as a competitor. And so that was a huge thing for me. And then the third one is in my jiu-jitsu business, my me as a coach, and then of course me running the jiu-jitsu business. Those are my three main focuses professionally. And yes, you ask yourself, hey, those are a lot of things. Wouldn't it be easier to only do one of them? Yeah, of course it would be easier to only do one of them. But sometimes it's like the same things that make you good, right? For me, being crazy are also the same things that make you try to do three big things professionally too, right? You got to be who you are. And so we'll look, like it, just looking at those goals. That's where we start, right? And so specifically, let's say that I want to grow my podcast. I want to be a good podcaster. Well, Of course, there are going to be skills that go into being a good podcaster. I've got to, uh, I've got to be able to produce content that people listen to. I've got to be able to share that content. I've got to be able to push it out on certain platforms. I need to be probably going on other podcasts. I need to be in that community to try to grow my brand. Some of the things that I struggle with first. We'll talk about like some things that I need to overcome first. One of the biggest things that would help this podcast, that would help this pretty much everything I'm trying to do content creation wise, that I do not do consistently. And so if you guys ever notice that I'm not doing this consistently and you want to get on me about something, you're just like mad at me throughout the day and you're like, you know what? I should be mean to Josh about something. You could be like, hey, Josh, I'm on your email list. I'm on the Simplifying Jiu-Jitsu email list. I got either the 3 Lenses ebook or what was the other ebook? Oh, the Simplifying Jiu-Jitsu ebook. I purchased, well, I guess they were free, but you got one of those ebooks and it put you on the Simplifying Jiu-Jitsu email list and you're wanting more communication with me. And I haven't been consistent on giving you that communication. And in a sense, I could be also trying to get you to buy some different instructionals. I could be trying to push you towards different podcasts that I've produced or different YouTube videos or different posts that I've even made, right? But I'm not consistent on it. I'm not doing it. And I know that that is from talking to guys like Chewy. Like I know that that is a huge part of my success in the next year, but I don't do it. I have not formed a habit to be able to do it. And so now we'll talk about how I could actually get there. And I'm not even on this point yet in real life. This is something I plan on doing in the next month, is starting to form this habit of email creation. You guys can keep me honest on it. But this is right now what I'm about to tell you is the whole reason I'm doing this episode. And it was one little tweak to the idea of habits. And it just blew my mind. I've read the book Atomic Habits before. If you guys haven't, I think it's a very good book, especially for athletes to read. I was listening to this thing on like how James Clear pushed out his book. And one of the big things he sent to was athletes. He was like, hey, the routines and habits would help athletes so much if they just understood them better. And this little rule helped me understand habits so much better than I ever have. And this is where it started to separate the idea of building this great schedule and simply creating a habit, and the importance of simply creating a habit. Let's get a little more descriptive before we get into what this 2-minute rule is. And so we'll just look at it like this. So a lot of times we have certain routines that are set up because of one habit. Let's say, for instance, I just looked down at my cup of coffee. I'm recording pretty not early at all, but still in the morning. And so I look down at my coffee. So a lot of us probably have a routine like this. We wake up in the morning, we make our coffee, we check our phone, we go to the bathroom, usually go to the bathroom, check your phone. And, after that, maybe you shower, right? But that whole routine is probably based on coffee. It's probably based off your tea in the morning. It's probably based off your breakfast in the morning. Some habit that you have formed, and whether we realize it's a habit or not, I wake up every single morning and make coffee every single morning. And I have for probably like 12 years, 10 years at least, right? Every single morning I wake up and I make coffee and I consume coffee. And then that is the trigger, that is the start of the next few things. That is the start of, we talk about the morning routine. That is the first part of my morning routine. So how habits work is if I decided I was trying to not check my phone, if I decided, okay, I'm not going to check my phone, I could look at this routine that I have and I could say, okay, coffee, that doesn't make me check my phone. That's easy. Well, now I'm going to go to the bathroom And usually that's when I check my phone. Wait a second. What if instead I put my phone in the kitchen of the house and that's where I left my phone charger? So it's kind of out of reach for me. And so it's not even like I would have to actively think about going to get my phone. It's not part of my routine anymore. Maybe the kitchen's a bad example because you're making coffee, but you get what I'm saying. Lock it in the basement or something. I don't know. Just keep it away from you. And then when you drink your coffee, you go to the bathroom. Well, now you have a book sitting right next to the throne. Talked a lot about going number two in this episode so far. It's interesting. I don't know why this is I wish I would have picked something else, but we're already so deep into the analogy. We've got to just stick with it. So you read whatever book that is. Maybe that book is something that's helping you get to a place that you're trying to get to. Maybe you're saying, okay, well, I'm trying to develop these better business habits. So I'm going to spend 15 minutes each day reading this business book. And I'm just going to put it as part of my morning routine. Now, here's the thing. Some days you wake up and you're constipated. You don't got to go to the bathroom. So you start to break the chain. You start to break that reading of the book, which is something that is important for you. One, just for your mental health. You know that start of your day, you notice, hey, this habit is helping me feel better throughout the day. But I don't need to read. I'm not going to the bathroom. I'll just go check my phone. And then when you do that, you start to break the habit. You start to break the chain and you stop getting its effects. So instead, you wake up constipated and instead you follow the 2-minute rule and you say, I have no desire to read. I don't even have the right timing to read. But if I spend 2 minutes reading one page of this book, even if it's not the best reading, even if I'm not perfectly focused, if I spend 2 minutes, I have gotten a rep developing the habit. So that is how, when you think about like stretching more, when you think about learning Portuguese, when you think about learning to, watching instructionals, when you think about watching jujitsu tape, when you think about just going to class, it's the exact same. You are trying to develop a habit. It's not keeping a schedule. Yes, for some people, it is more helpful just to keep a schedule. And, some people's minds work better when, they like the word programming, right? If you guys are familiar with the 3 lenses, probably the more scientific people, they might enjoy this schedule a little more. Maybe the more athletic people, they might say, well, the schedule is what helps me, right? And maybe those are true. But for most of us, most people that I have actual jujitsu conversations with, they struggle with creating the right routine. And the right routine is formed through habits, and habits are formed through just taking the rep. For instance, I told you guys I'm trying to get better at stretching. And I'm like, hey, I'm trying to be consistent with stretching. And I don't think with stretching that I have missed a day in like the last 3 weeks. I've been just consistent 3 weeks of stretching. But here's what my stretching looked like today. I'll tell you what my stretching looks like over the last 2 days. So Tuesday, I'm off work. I wake up, we actually take a walk with the dog, and then I stretch. I come home and I'm nice and warmed up, and I probably stretched for like 45 minutes. I felt great. I stretched everything in my body. It's kind of like a mix of yoga and stretching. And then I kind of finished rolling out with my foam roller. And it felt amazing, really felt good. And then I woke up this morning, okay, the next day. And same thing that I was just talking to you guys about. I tried not to check my phone is my first thing in the morning. Tried to keep some distance, do distance management on the cell phone. I don't ever talk about this, but I think that cell phones are inherently evil, and I'll tell you guys about that in a second. But I don't check my social media. I'm going to stretch. I'm going to make my coffee. And I'm going to stretch. And so I do. I make my coffee and I stretch for You guessed it, 2 minutes. I'm busy today. I have, had to do a podcast. I had to talk to you guys, right? I could be stretching right now. But I made sure that I still checked the box. It really was nothing more than a few deep breaths, what do you call that? A down dog pose, and like a few morning stretches, like they call them good mornings in yoga. And That was it. But I got my reps. And the reason I know that this has been effective is because probably in the last 3 weeks, there have probably been 3 or 4 days that I've just absolutely not had time or just physically not had the ability to stretch. And so instead of saying, hey, you've got this routine, Josh, you need to follow this schedule. And the schedule says today you've got to be doing 1,000,000 toe touches. I said, all I can do today is make sure that I keep the habit. All I can do today is not break the chain. I'm going to keep 2 minutes and I'm going to stretch. Now, I know some people have read this Atomic Habit book, and they're like, yeah, this is not groundbreaking, Josh, you're an idiot. But I don't think everyone's thinking that way. I think a lot of people might go, I could apply that to this habit that I've always wanted to develop, right? This thing that I've always wanted to do, but in order to do it, I have to develop the habit. Imagine if we looked at anything like we look at jujitsu, because jujitsu is so much fun and it's so desirable to be good. You go into a gym, you see the pecking order of things, you see the level of just respect that is given to the best guys. And you go, whoa, that's really cool. I would love to experience that. I would love to be a part of that. And so you start to try to get into jiu-jitsu and you just keep training, right? And you develop the habits that every Monday and Wednesday, and yes, you could say that that's your schedule, but it's also a habit because schedule is just a piece of paper, right? It's just a list on my Google Calendar. But habits are me actually performing it, or me actually doing it, or me actually developing this thought process that I don't even have to think about it. After work on Mondays and Wednesdays, I'm driving to the gym. I don't have to think about it. I just know this is my habit. And then it gets me to that point at black belt. We do this on the mat so much, but when it comes to off the mat habits, they're so much harder for most of us to form. Now, wait, I told you guys before we take a break, I just would want to tell you guys how much I hate cell phones and why, because I think that, you can hate cell phones, of course, who doesn't hate them? But I feel like it's good reason. There is this weird thing in modern society where people think that they should have access to you at all hours of the day, every single day of the week. Like people think it is a right that they should have access to each other 100% of the time. You look at Twitter, there are a lot of celebrities that with just like saying one thing, they could respond and I could have access to this celebrity. And so you think this is how life should be. And for most of us, and I'm not saying this as the guy that has the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show and people are always trying to get my attention. This happens to all of us. I mean, most of us. This happens to a lot of us. That your mother-in-law wanted to talk to you about something stupid, or your parents wanted you to explain yourself about a social media post, or your kids. You should probably pay attention to your kids. Let's not go into that one. But just how so many people, especially so many people, it's never like people that I'm close to that I notice this with. It is always like people that are pretty far from me, but still think that they should just be able to ask me something important. And like I should, and then like I'll see them a few days later and they'll be like, hey, you didn't respond to my text message. Yeah, your text message was stupid. read back your text message. Imagine the amount of thought that it would take for me to respond to this text message. You didn't even ask a question. You made 15 statements in a really long paragraph and expected me to be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to respond with 15 paragraphs back. No, this was a stupid thing. It didn't deserve a response, and neither do you because you're a bad person. Okay, that might have been a step too far. But that's my argument with cell phones. Of course, there are amazing parts of it. Of course, you're probably listening to the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show in your car on a cell phone while it's playing through your little screen and you're getting navigated through the traffic to work. That's amazing. I can't hate on that stuff. But the fact that, you hear people say it like this, that we are becoming androids, meaning we are part machine, because in all of our left or right hand, we have a computer glued to it. And then since we have a computer glued to it, everybody should have access to us 100% of the time. And I promise if you take care of that, if you make yourself less accessible, you'll be so much happier. You will compare yourself so much less to other people, but it will also help you develop better habits because I spend so much time just wasted away on a phone. Yes, there are times that it is good to sit in. Maybe you have a game that you like on your phone, or maybe you want to text somebody and have a conversation with somebody. Those things can be good. But when it becomes this thing that we have to do, I've got to respond to all these text messages that don't matter. I always reference the book, The 4 Hour Work Week. And Tim Ferriss talks about it a lot with email, and how email has become this business only thing. And it rules so many people's lives, and most of their lives are built around answering emails and going to meetings that they don't actually contribute in or learn from. And so that is what most people's lives are. Texting and Facebook Messenger have become the same thing. If you really look at how many texts you receive a day and how many of those are actually relevant to everyday life, and how many of those aren't just a problem for you. Just another thing to solve. Really little simple habit before we take this break. I promise we'll take a break in a second because I think I have some good stuff to finish with too. But just a simple habit, something I really, really liked. It talks about how I don't check my phone first thing in the morning. Not all phones have these, I'm sure, but I'm sure you could download an app to make this doable. But I have a Google Pixel, and it has a setting where you can basically turn it on bedtime mode. And how bedtime mode works is there are only like certain people that can contact me. And for me, it's like my wife, who I'm usually at home with by the time bedtime mode kicks off. But from 9 p.m. to 7, I can't receive calls. I think if you call me like 3 times in a row, eventually my phone will say, okay, this might be important, and will let you through. But my phone's in the other room anyway. I wouldn't hear it regardless, and it's on silent. So don't need me. Don't call me. Like I said, there's this idea that people should have access to you all the time, but really it's better if they don't for you. And you've got to think about that, And so, yeah, that is super helpful. Not checking your phone first thing in the morning, and just being just being aware of how often you are consuming content. I told you guys this on the episode of should you start a BJJ podcast, should you start a YouTube podcast? We're getting to a point where what most of us do is just consume content. And that is going to be, like we're in the information age. That is really what we're doing, is we're consuming information all the time. Some of it's stupid, some of it's great, right? And just being aware of that and saying, okay, maybe I don't need to consume 12 hours of Instagram today. Maybe that's not helpful for me. Maybe there are certain jiu-jitsu YouTube or Instagrams that are actually helpful for my jiu-jitsu goals. And I like Instagram, so I like to go on those. So maybe I keep doing those things, but I only do them during this hour of the day. That was a really random rant to just start bashing cell phones, but yeah, I just hate them. They're the worst. Absolutely the worst. But anyway, let's go ahead and take a commercial break and we'll get back into the episode. Hey guys, Josh here. Just want to provide a little information on if you like the podcast, if you're enjoying this idea, this conversation on habits, what habit you could develop that would be awesome. And it would be the habit of sharing an episode of the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show. I know that I'm always pushing the 5-star review, and I am still pushing the 5-star review if you have not done it yet. I would love a 5-star review if you haven't done it yet. But I'm seeing a huge uptick in 5-star reviews. The amount of 5-star reviews that I am getting, I am loving, and it has just been awesome, and I'm very appreciative. Now, let me ask you this. How cool would it be if you developed a habit of every time you listened to an episode of the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show that you said, hey, I'm going to show Josh how much I appreciate this content that he just put out that is helpful for me in my jiu-jitsu journey, in my jiu-jitsu career, and I'm going to do that with a simple screenshot and then share to my Instagram story or share to my Facebook or my Snapchat or my TikTok or my, I don't know, whatever people are using nowadays. But that's all this commercial is. Obviously I can't check if you're doing it, but if you do tag me in it, I will definitely share it on my story. Also, you can tag me at the Josh McKinney, but mainly if you guys are feeling generous today, you're trying to develop a good social media habit, a healthy social media habit. Take that screenshot of the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show and then share it on your story. I would love that and greatly appreciate it. If not, I get it. Just I'll settle for the 5-star review. Let's go ahead and get back to the episode. And we're back. We're going to look at our third point of the day. So like we talked about to start, I thought that schedule was all that mattered. And then I realized, point 2, that habits matter. And now we're going to look at some ideas on adding good habits for jiu-jitsu growth. And we talked about this already, but I think we can kind of make everything fit and make more sense and give you guys some actual direction and actual place to go after you turn off this episode. So I thought, okay, what would be the best example of a habit for people to develop or something for people to develop, especially something that would be helpful for jiu-jitsu growth that a lot of people want to do but struggle. And so I thought that study would be the best place to start for a jiu-jitsu habit that people should be developing and how they could actually develop it. And the reason that I thought that is because right now there was only one, okay, what do all the listeners have in common? Literally, the only thing that I know that all the listeners have in common is that they listen to the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show. The I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show, though it's fun and try to keep it funny and light, it is still a show completely dedicated to getting better at jiu-jitsu. It is a form of study. Yes, it's not study in the same way that we learned that we have to study in a classroom, that we learned when we were in school. We want to talk about cell phones being irrelevant. Let's talk about how irrelevant school is, right? No, but just school isn't the only way to learn. You can learn listening to somebody in a podcast while in your car. So if we all recognize that we all listen to the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show, or at least have this one time, what is the routine that got us there? For me, I was always a big fan of the Tim Ferriss show. And I always would listen to his podcast. I thought it was really, really helpful for me. One in my business, but since he's so big on efficiency and effectiveness in every aspect, it's also really helpful for my jiu-jitsu too, for my training. And, really the thing that got me reading Atomic Habits again was, listening to the Tim Ferriss show. But something interesting happened. It was like a year where I stopped listening to it. And I was like, maybe I just don't like the show anymore. But it was actually way simpler than that. It was that I stopped having to take like 45-minute drives to work when I was doing personal training. I would do like a 45-minute drive there and then back. And part of my routine was to listen to a podcast. That was the habit that I had formed, was when I get in the car, I drink my coffee and I listen to my podcast, and then I train everybody, and then I come home and I listen to the rest of the episode of the podcast. That was my routine. A lot of you might have that routine, those habits formed with the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show. Because you get into the car, you know, hey, it's Thursday morning, Josh has got a show, or it's Friday, or whatever day you listen, and maybe it's just whenever you feel like listening, but you have this little point. You go, oh yeah, I think it's time for me to listen to this show. And you listen, and that is your jiu-jitsu study. So let's talk about that. Why do you listen to the show, but you never study tape like you should? You never watch high-level grapplers. One, it could simply be that it's just not presented to you in the right way. You just don't know which grapplers to watch. And if that's the case, you just probably should start to find some opinions from other people. Find, hey, who do you like to watch? Josh, who do you watch? Who do your students watch? Or you ask the tough guys at your gym, hey, who do you like to watch jiu-jitsu wise? Maybe some of them are like, nobody. I don't watch competitive jiu-jitsu. But maybe somebody gives you the right guy, and then you can start to form a habit of watching this person compete or watching their instructionals. But here's the thing. If you don't enjoy it, if this show had the same amount of content, but you didn't find it as enjoyable, you didn't find it as funny, you didn't find the way that I teach to be as helpful to you, most likely you wouldn't do it. Most likely it would not be a habit that you form. So when we're looking at jiu-jitsu study, we've got to find things that we actually like. Sometimes we have other things that we would rather do, and so we don't want to do it. And that's when we can start to force ourselves to like it. Because it's not always, we all don't love everything that we have to do, right? We don't all go to work every day and say, well, I can't wait to do this. Sometimes we have to focus more on the result of what that habit forms, right? And so for me, when I'm watching these jiu-jitsu, when I'm studying jiu-jitsu, maybe I don't feel like studying. I'm watching instructionals. You guys know, for me, I hate watching instructionals. But sometimes I need more knowledge on a certain idea or a certain position, and I go, this is the place that I could get all that knowledge in like 2 hours if I just would watch. But I still struggle to watch. And so what you can do is you can focus on the result. I can put in my mind, I'm going to start to finish this submission if I watch this instructional. That's the result that I want. When I'm watching this, I am increasing my chances of submitting this guy at the gym who I hate with this armbar. I'm going to be so much closer now that I understand, right? And so that is my focus. Something else we can do is we can look at doing something positive after. Maybe you hate listening to the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show, but you go, okay, it is helpful for me. I need to be listening to this. So once you get done listening to the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show, you mark on your calendar that you completed an episode. Or, and it's just that little, like in sales, they call it ringing the bell. Oh, I got a sale, I ring the bell. And what it does is it formulates as part of your habit of selling, starts to make you think about, I really want to ring the bell today. I need to sell in order to ring the bell, but I really want to ring the bell. And you do something that is you ringing the bell. Usually you want to do something healthy. You probably shouldn't go, okay, I just finished this episode of the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show, or I just finished this YouTube video on learning jiu-jitsu. Time to reward myself with a cigarette. But hey, if that's what works for you, more power to you. The big thing that we're looking at, though, is how we are going to start to practice, how we're going to start to, we looked at study is understanding, right? When we're learning jujitsu, when you're listening to the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show, you are only helping your understanding, right? There is no, you're not physically involved in this. And so we're only helping you understand deeply. But there is a separation between understanding and actually being good. Okay. Actually being able to, in a live situation, take that understanding and apply it to the situation. And then, of course, hopefully one day you don't even have to think about that understanding. It is just so second nature that you can always apply it to that situation. But the separation between understanding and actually being good, they're in two hands, and how you cover that distance is through practice. If you listen, what movie is that? I think it's the first Doctor Strange. She asks Stephen Strange when his hands are all broken and he's trying to learn magic. She says, "How did you get good at medicine?" And he said, "Study and practice." Those are the only two things that you need to get good at something: is understand it deeper and get repetitions of doing it. And so for you to take that study that you've now developed a habit of, you need to apply it. You need to take that knowledge. Because like we said, so much of what we do anymore is just consuming information and consuming information. And so little of it actually goes into practice. The best way to get it into practice is to form habits. Make it a habit that you show up to the gym 10 minutes before class every day, 5 minutes before class every day, and you play designated winner with somebody, with a partner that you like that also shows up that early. And then some days, since you've developed this habit of 5 minutes, of 2 minutes, when you guys decide you're both going to do a tournament and you need to get even better, you can say, "Hey, I can sneak out of work like 45 minutes early. What if we got like almost an hour? What if we got 45 minutes that we could play designated winner once a week?" And then since I've already developed that habit, that's not going to be hard to add 45 minutes in. I already know that I play designated winner on Wednesday nights before class. My body, my mind already knows that that is a habit that I have formed. And so now if I want to make that habit even more relevant, I can do that. But it's only first because I focused on the habit and I developed the habit through practice. As we say, the only two things you need to get better in jiu-jitsu is understanding and repetition. I develop it through my repetition. I develop this habit. And then that also kind of brings me into kind of my closing thoughts of this episode. And that is, we talked about, if you're trying to get better at designated winner, you need a buddy. That's a difference with jujitsu and in most other things, is you can study jujitsu alone, but you really can't practice it alone. I'm not against grappling dummies. I think that they are, my dad has one, and every time I go to his house, I am in the habit of beating the heck out of that thing. And I think that you can develop certain skills that you need to develop, how to put pressure on people, how to get under armpits, just how to fight certain things better. But of course, it's not as relevant as a real person, right? Because in jiu-jitsu, we're always getting a lot of feedback that we're having to understand what's going on. And the only way to get that feedback is through somebody, right? Is through somebody giving you that feedback. And so you do need people with jiu-jitsu, and that is why accountability is so important. Maybe you have somebody at your gym that is your guy or your girl that you guys always show up to class at the same days. You always train together. You're kind of pushing, you're looking at the same goals. But I don't think most people have that. And what you're going to find is, if you're committed to jiu-jitsu, you will have that with different people throughout your whole jiu-jitsu progression, your whole jiu-jitsu career, because getting all the way in jiu-jitsu. Simply getting to black belt in jiu-jitsu is incredibly hard, and most people will not do it. Even the people that are as motivated as you right now, they probably won't do it. Even you probably won't do it. But if you're committed, if you develop the right habits, you can do it. But you need somebody there with you. You need, or even a few people. And that we're going to talk about that next week. Is this idea of the 5 most important decisions that you make in jiu-jitsu. And they're really just going to be about your jiu-jitsu relationships. And of course, we're going to talk about habit forming, but it's going to be more on accountability partners, training partners, people that you compete with in the gym. We're going to look at what you need to have to get anywhere in jiu-jitsu. And then, if you don't have it, how to get there, how to get those things, just some different thoughts on kind of accountability and partners. But I just wanted to touch on those to finish off this week. And that is that you need somebody. You need people to help you get there, because there are going to be days, just like there are days that we don't feel like stretching. There are days that we don't feel like doing jiu-jitsu. And just a text message from a buddy that says, hey, I'm going to be at class tonight. I need a training partner. Are you going to be there? Just that, a lot of times, is enough to pull us back into the gym, to pull us back into, yeah, I guess I'll be there. I guess I can show up to class today. And that is what we're all looking for, I think, is people to keep us accountable. And to do that, we also have to be a friend, though. We also have to be helping them stay accountable. Maybe you lucked out, and maybe the person that you are with is just the most routine and scheduled human being on the planet. And so it's way easier for them. They just keep you accountable. If you find that, let me know. Let me get in on that crew and have that person send me texts in the morning. Like I said, I won't see them or respond ever, but they'll probably be helpful. But anyway, just making sure that you are accountable. And so can I read my own handwriting here? This is the last thing I wanted to talk about is, maybe we're at the end of this episode and you go, okay, I don't know of any habits that I need to form, though. I think that this is a point where you just ask yourself a few questions, and then you can ask some other people these questions. So the first one was, what habits do people who have succeeded in what you're trying to succeed in attribute to their success? What habits do they attribute to their success? And a lot of times you can, like I said, with how many people are consuming content, there are more and more people creating content now. And the amount of free content out there is insane. And so there are so many people saying, hey, this is how I did it. Really pay attention when they say that this is how they did it. Pay attention to what habits they had to have in order to do whatever it is that they did that you're wanting to do. Then you can also ask yourself this, because we really focused this. We kept this whole episode pretty positive, minus the phone rants and all the amount I talked about hating people. You can also look at what habits are pitfalls for people trying to get to where you are. And these pitfalls are important, right? Because sometimes we develop bad habits, even in jiu-jitsu. We develop habits of putting our hands in the wrong spot. We develop habits of tapping too late. We develop habits of not responding to losing in the right way. We develop habits of overtraining because we're so focused that then we injure ourselves and we only get to compete at 70%, or we don't get to compete at all because we were just so obsessed, right? And we got in this habit of overtraining and not listening to my body. But every time I listen to my body and I actually can acknowledge, wow, I almost feel feverish and I'm not sick. I just training has been so hard on me, or, I can't get moving. I can't, I'm losing rounds to people that I absolutely never lose rounds to. well, maybe you're overtrained. The better you are at acknowledging that, the more you develop the habit of being able to see that next time and being able to go, I'm right there. I'm right on the edge of overtraining. I actually need an off day today. I need to just go home and relax. I need to go home and stretch. That is, I think where I'll leave you guys, is just being aware of those bad habits that you could be developing. And most importantly, looking at other people, looking at people that have been successful and trying to steal habits that they have, trying to, that of course, will get you to where you want to go. And I think that is all that I have for you guys today. I hope that you guys like this one. Let's send it over to Josh and let him close us out. And that is the episode. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I've been, I was actually not going to do this one. I wanted to do some more study before I actually did this episode. But I think that when I do that, sometimes it's just on the false pretense that, okay, it's, I just need 10% more to really know this thought completely. But as we talk about on the show, most likely there are not absolutes. And so, knowing the perfect schedule and the perfect habits completely, it probably wouldn't happen. It's probably not realistic. And so, that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys like this one. I really, really, really recommend that if you like this one, that you guys check out the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's really, really good for jiu-jitsu. It really applies to jiu-jitsu and like just the pitfalls of being a jiu-jitsu athlete or being just a jiu-jitsu hobbyist. And really it helps you stay consistent. I think for a lot of us, is whatever other goals we set, the main goal for most of us is to become a black belt. It's not to get your black belt, but to actually be good enough to be a black belt. And I really think that book, for me, I would say read, but I haven't read since 2012 when I graduated high school. Yes, I'm not reading. Audiobooks. Download the audiobook. Download the Audible. Use promo code Josh is awesome / I suck at jiu-jitsu show at checkout. I'm just joking. It's not a promo code. But anyway, really highly recommend that book. We're going to look at next week, as I said, we're going to look at the 5 most important decisions that you make in your jiu-jitsu. And it's really going to be about building the right crew around you for success. And I will be probably finished with the studio by then, and I will hopefully be showing you guys the right crew that I have around me for my success. And so I'm pumped about that. That should be really cool. That's all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and hope you get into some good habits and get on me if a week or two goes by and I don't start getting consistent on sending emails. And I hope today's episode helps you guys suck just a little bit less at jiu-jitsu. Have a great day, guys.